Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. This is a little bit later than the previous joint that I share. Continuation, afterthought, further thought at this moment. Further consideration about the Varna system, caste, class, separation, apartheid, order, function, purpose, roles, lanes, life. So in the previous joint, I talk about who killed Bob Marley, and the example that Robert Nesta Marley shares in terms of ascending amidst the caste system of society, world society, not just Jamaica, but world society, and then the difficulties and challenges within it, and the purpose within it, the lessons. So the follow-up joint here, something actually shared through the years before, but I shared today in the context of what I just shared, amidst everything else that is shared. Share. Here we go. The caste system of the United States, America, specifically, historically, contemporarily, and then in the context of the greater scheme of things. All right, so what I've shared before, for years I've shared this, is that the United States establishes effectively a four-tier caste system, officially, formally, like legalistically, doctrinally, four-tier caste system. And so, well, first let's talk about the Varnas, just as a review. In the Varna system, there's the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. The Brahmins, priests, are at the top. Kshatriyas are the kings, the priests, Kshatriyas are the kings, the princes, the government rulers, military rulers, warriors, soldiers. Third is the Vaishyas, who are the mental laborers. Historically, those are the merchants, the accountants, the record keepers, and additionally, so that's the third caste. And then the fourth caste is the physical laborers, those who are in the fields, those who are doing the cleaning, and additionally. That's historically the four Varnas in India, but we can find that in every tradition, every community, one way or the other. And there's order. People know their role in life, their occupation. It's inherited from generation to generation, so people know their lane. And then there's rules. There's borders, boundaries. People aren't supposed to marry across the boundaries, and additionally, and people aren't supposed to interact between those boundaries either. But in that rigidity, there eventually becomes a fallacy, a limitation, and there emerges an example or examples of people who transcend, who go beyond those borders and lead beyond those boundaries and lead people in a way, because the ultimate truth, the ultimate teaching within the traditions is, again, the one love that transcends all of those boundaries. So anyways, that's a review of the Varna system in India, but we evidence this across the world, the civilizations and tribes in different ways. What up, Blue Jay? Gobbling up them peanuts, yeah. Gullets of birds is a thing. So anyways, that's a review of the Varnas. Now, in the United States, now recognizing we got the army of Blue Jays right now, because the peanuts are very valuable. Plant seeds. The birds know plant seeds. That's where the energy is. So when they see that, they got the nice stuff today. Serious, the Blue Jays are eating it up, fast, because they know the starlings are around here, and starlings got numbers. So when the starlings sniff what's going on, it's a done deal, even for the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays are eating it up right now. Talk about the caste system. The Blue Jays are the Air Force of the forest. So anyways, and that's the whole thing right there. The ecosystem of birds, the economics of birds. Within each species, what the sparrows do, the occupations of, like, it's not just a matter of feeding and building nests, but aside from that, what do sparrows do? for sparrows their own selves, for sparrows collectively amongst sparrowdom, but then also amongst the other birds. Each species plays its role in the forest, and there's a cooperation there. So it's serious things to learn, things to study, things to heed. So going back to the topic, the Varna system, the forecasts. The United States, as formidable as it seems at this moment, or it seemed, or it has seemed in the past century, it's very new, it's very young, in its tenure or whatever on Earth as a phenomenon, and particularly as an authority or authoritative phenomenon, and so. And the way it is established, its creation, its earthly creation, is new as well, and it's constructed. It's a human construct, and so the basic foundation. I mean, we'll go to Haudenosaunee and the Gaianesha the Law of a Great Peace. That's basically the roots of the U.S. Constitution. But when we look at the U.S. Constitution itself, and essentially like some of the manipulations and fabrications that facilitate and establish the order and the rigidity, the boundaries within American society. Oh, I almost said human. Within American society, the U.S. Constitution formally, legalistically establishes four castes within the American system, and so those four castes are people of European, and it's basically along tribal, ethnic lines, and then socioeconomic lines as well. And it's actually rather very intelligent the way it effectively works, as I'm endeavoring to explain here, God willing. But then there's also, again, susceptibility for, well, just the nature of it, evolution and something further being evolving and supplanting the methodology of the United States, because it works strongly for a while, but now conditions are balancing, settling such that the methodology is increasingly antiquated. It's becoming further obsolete social and political technology. So that's part of what I'm explaining here. So we talk about the Varna, then we talk about the American caste system. Four classes. Now, again, it's particularly along ethnic and socioeconomic lines. So these are the four castes. At the top of the system, of the American system, is people of European ancestry who have land, who own land, who are recognized as land owners, who are entitled, who are holders of titles of land. Typically big, large landowners. And when we look at the history of America when it's established, those landowners coming from initial positions within the British crown of those entitlements, having a knowledge about how to manage and administrate lands, plantations, agriculture, and additionally, and having thus influence within the provinces of the United States, from the south to the north, and additionally, now obviously the north becomes increasingly industrialized, having factories, and depending less upon agriculture as the predominant economic factor and political influence, and additionally, and further in terms of factory production and otherwise. But particularly when the United States is established, it's still very much an agrarian economy, and those who own land, those who are titles, have the knowledge about how to administrate land, how to govern people who are the mid-level managers, the officers, the slave drivers, and additionally, and then how to supply the food and shelter for the slaves, and get production, get crops harvested and distributed, and how to negotiate contract, all that. The landowners are at the top level of the American society. European, because that's who was doing things in that respect at that time. European landowners. The second one is people of European descent who are in debt. So these are indentured, basically slaves. Everybody's a slave, to be honest, actually. Even the landowners. They're the rejects and the outcasts of European society and the monarchies and everything else. Like, oh yeah, no, go over to America, because yeah, you ain't got a place here. So if you try to be big baller, it ain't gonna be here. So go own some land in this colony. So it was kind of like where the rejects are. Like, to be honest, like, that's facts. So even at the very highest, everybody in the United States is an outcast from where they come from. Facts. Love and peace. We all. That's what it is. No shade, no hate. Just that's what it is. All right. So that's the first level. Second level is people of European ancestry who are in debt, who are poor, not of the nobility or whatever, don't have that knowledge about how to run land and middle managers or whatever, are basically like physical laborers, don't even have the knowledge of like being accountants or merchants or anything. The physical laborers who are like on the streets of Europe, and additionally, and are promised this opportunity of getting money, getting land, and having opportunity for future generations of passing that on to other people. But in order to do that, becoming indebted to get onto the boat to get over to the United States, it was expensive. So in order to do that, people would sell themselves, saying like, okay, you know what? Well, I'm going to avoid the first person in the sense, but they would agree to work for 7 years, in order to be able to get here. And then in that completion of 7 years, the understanding that, yo, we're killing all the natives. Let's be careful about this. But the colonials were basically killing off the natives and saying, yo, we're getting all this land. We got guns. We got technology. The natives can't do anything about it. It's endless bounties here. So even you work 7 years, then you like giving away land. And so that was the motivation of arriving here. So, but at the same time, second class. At least at the beginning, you have the opportunity of getting land eventually, but in the beginning, second class. Now, for those who don't have the discipline to actually get that land, and additionally, staying second class. But don't worry, there's a third class, so you're not at the bottom, or one wouldn't be at the bottom. The third class is the natives that we just mentioned, and they're not part of society. They're not part of the mechanics of the politics. They're nothings. They're just nobodies. So no, don't have the rights, don't have of citizenship. It's just like these are the people who are here, and we got to deal with these people one way or the other. So that's what it is. Third caste is the native kinfolk, whose land is being da 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 da. That's the third caste. Then the fourth caste are African slaves. So these are the ones that are like the bottom of the bottom of society. The laborers in the field, like not even human, subhuman, 3/5 of a human being, officially, legalistically to this day. That's the law. That's the fourth caste. So that those are the castes, and that's the social order today of U.S. society, of the American caste system, today. That's how it works, regardless of what people's mouthpieces are, what the nice PC like little pimp talk is. That's the law. That's the foundation. That's the social order and the caste system and the apartheid of today. Now, people who don't fit immediately that description of those 3-4 characters, ethnically, religiously, or otherwise, they find their place where they fit in and have to make accommodations accordingly. So if they want to fit into that first level, then basically they become slaves and become assimilated into that first level culture. They want to get into the second level, same thing. Third level, there it is. Fourth level, there it is. But they find their place within one of those joints and then adopt the policies and the apartheid cultures within whatever those are. If people try to like migrate from one caste to the next, again, it's boundaries, and people become isolated. Like it's difficult to bring families and migrate families across those apartheid boundaries. So, but that's just the nature. That's the American caste system today. Literally 100%. That's the caste system in the United States today. People of European ancestry who own land, people of European ancestry who are in debt, car debt, house debt, credit card debt, medical bill debt, laboring paycheck to paycheck, even when it's big paychecks, and having a big budget and big expenditures to live that life, still debt and second class. Third, but don't worry, it's not the bottom of the bottom, so you can look down upon native kinfolk who are 1% of the population, and that shows how sustainable this methodology is. And then people of African ancestry. So, and if you see somebody who's claiming to be in one of those other categories, again, they may have the face of that, the facade, the aesthetic of something different, but who they are, what they're living, and what they're about, what their beliefs are, what they're accountable to, what they're enslaved and serving, is that culture, regularity. So anyways, that's the caste system. Now, how does that fit into what I just mentioned about the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras? the ingenious part, the intelligence of the American, whether it's intentional, and there's certain confidence, there's an intentionality with this 250 years ago, but it's also like the intrinsic thing, and it's part of the social evolution of Earth itself, and is just being manifested through the case or the example of the United States, the leadership of the United States. And so this is what it is. What the United States does, that is different from Haudenosaunee, that's different from Guyana-Goshawa, aside from just the clan system, because that's a huge thing right there that the United States does not do. And the whole balance between male authority and female authority, masculine authority, female authority, the United States didn't include that within its framework, and so because of that, is experiencing the consequences accordingly. And so that's part of the unraveling and the unsettling of the methodology of the United States paradigm. But beyond that, the intelligent thing that the United States does that enables it to like become so influential today through what happens, aside from just like the basic like geographical, geopolitical conditions of being away from all the conflict of the traditions on the Eastern Hemisphere and everything, because that plays itself out in terms of the Second World War particularly. But all that aside, focusing on what I'm saying right now, the intelligent thing that is done with the American caste system is that everything that I just mentioned in terms of the four castes of America, the European landowners, European indigenous, native kinfolk, and then people of African ancestry who are enslaved. All of those are essentially just the second caste. It's like subsets of the second caste. All of those is the framework of government, the Kshatriyas, the rule of government as a democracy or a republic, a democratic republic as the United States. So when those people at the top of the American caste system, the people of European ancestry, are actually just the top of the second caste, because that's the nature of the government. They're not the priests, because what the United States says is that, okay, this Constitution is only going to apply to the caste. Or excuse me, this Constitution is only going to apply to the Kshatriyas, to the methodology of government. We're not going to address, as the United States, we're not going to address the realm of the priests, religion, separation of church and state. We're going to let anybody be their own religiosity. They can be their own Brahmins if they can sustain that themselves. We'll just work in this realm of the Kshatriyas, the government and below. We'll just run that. And then anybody who wants to go beyond the government into the realm of the Brahmins, the religiosity, that's on them. We'll have our negotiations accordingly, whether it's the Quakers, whether it's the William Penn and the Mennonites, or the Amish, or whoever it may be. Like, we'll work a case by case on that scenario, and we'll see. And there's supposed to be freedoms and everything else like that, but it basically becomes like treaties and negotiations and additions. So anybody who wants to get into that level of the Brahmins, our policy is, you can do that. But from the second below, Kshatriyas, government and below, this is how it is. European landowners, European indigenous, native, and African kinfolk. So that's second down. So anybody, theoretically, can ascend beyond the realm of government, but at that point, they have to have that knowledge. They have to have that discipline. They have to have that leverage with the government to be able to get to that top level. So what that does is it provides everybody at least that semblance of hope and possibility that if they are dissatisfied with government, if they are dissatisfied with the American system itself, they can still coexist with the American system, but at the Brahmin level. And so that applies traditionally 200 years ago to religions. And so religions flock to the United States. Religious cults from Europe who are being persecuted and outcast, from the separatists, the pilgrims, all these stories that are so endearing in American culture, they're actually cults. They're actually like outcasts. They're the kinsfolk who are dispersed, who receive dispersion from the mainstream of European society, and then just like flee to the United States to have some type of space to be. So they have the opportunity within the American system, and the negotiations accordingly. Here's the woodpecker. I'm uncertain how much is available since the blue jays are here, but there it is in the soleil. What do you see that? There it is. You see that soleil? Voila. So all right, before we get too happy in this joint, let's focus and wrap it up, because we got things to do like spirituality, and religion. So point here is that's that. So it's a confluence of two distinct caste systems fused together. There's the traditional Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Shudra system that is traditional around the world, but then there's the American version of it that makes the subsets at the second level down, and has a negotiation, a treaty kind of terms with those who want to be at the number one. So again, traditionally, that's the religions, and even like the cults, the Protestant kind of predominantly the Protestant Christian kind of different denominations and factions and cults that later become denominations. When we look at Wesleyan and Methodist, and additionally, so we again Mormon, the American-born religiosities. Even to the elements of the Scientologists, and additionally, even traditions like Baha'i, and additionally, obviously all the other traditions, but particularly those having prominent rootedness and foundation and support within the American paradigm. And amidst this is also the space where science evolves into a religiosity in the American paradigm, because initially, predominantly, science is actually a third caste experience. It's people who are mental laborers. They're working. There aren't laboratories during that period over 200 years ago. They're like rooms. There might be something like basic like academies or places where people like learn and study about chemistry and physics. But even then, it's a very small percentage, extremely small. People hardly are even talking about that. People are talking about agriculture. People are talking about war weapons and interest in technology and those type of things. But like, it's so tiny that the art, the field of science is so tiny during that period 200 years ago as a phenomenon, let alone as a social and political and civilizational construct. However, again, around 200 years ago, the Industrial Revolution and when there are these discoveries, a confluence of cultures, a confluence of knowledge, a certain space to do that type of studies and experimentation, a certain lack of accountability of the consequences of that experimentation, experimenting on lives, experimenting on land, experimenting on nature, and not having to answer for like all the harm that's caused from that experimentation. And then learning from that, like, yo, we can do this, yo, bombs and stuff like that, Gatling guns, and mass production, factory methodologies, things that provide benefit, and also things that provide harm, things that provide benefit but cause harm also in the process. So science, huge leaps in terms of what's learned and what's done by science, such that it influences. It builds universities, and establishes an entire culture and civilizational paradigm, and a system of belief, a religiosity in and of itself, where scientists, people who have that knowledge of chemistry and physics and biology, but particularly chemistry and physics, because a knowledge of biology is had a long time. Same thing with chemistry and physics too, but anyways. Mathematics, obviously, throw that in there. But people who have that knowledge arise through the ranks of the caste system within the United States, but also in the world caste system, from being just the mental laborers, people who are hired to find out ways of doing things in an increasingly efficient way, being hired to find military advantages in terms of weaponry and tools and stuff like that. Going from that position, an occupation and caste status, into getting wealthy buying land, and rising into the realms of landowners within the American system, and thus like getting into the higher ranks of the Kshatriya in the world system of like running government, influencing policy, and additionally, and then going even further because of being effective in that, in becoming the purveyors of a religiosity, of a system of belief, because in this process, through a number of generations, people forget about how the body works. People forget about nature. Instead, people are worried so much about getting money, getting rich, getting a better job, getting access in terms of status, and how to ascend within the human constructs of society. Again, status, getting the right credentials in terms of eventually education, social affiliation, and job and neighborhood and everything else like that. People become so fixated and concentrated on those things that people let go of the knowledge of what healthy food is, and what healthy living is in terms of exercise and fitness. Things that are done just naturally in an agrarian society where people are in the field, people eat what is grown, so it's all organic, and living that healthy way. People let that go in order to move to the city, to get a factory job that pays better, pays higher, to buy food at the market rather than growing it themselves, and rely upon the best prices and what looks best and or tastes best or whatever else, getting the delicacies that'll give people access to get invitations to the dinner parties that get people connected to the right associations and social circles, and connections to the right schools and everything else like that. People learn those things and let go of the things that are actually healthy to the body. Meanwhile, the scientists and doctors become increasingly knowledgeable and instituted in the infrastructure, to be able to have that knowledge about how the body works, and how to manipulate, how to work the body, so to speak, in terms of to heal the body, to influence the body, to cultivate and induce addictions and dependencies, and the psychologies of this as well, and thus influence people's belief systems, and what people, the stories that people receive. Dinosaurs, oh, where did dinosaurs come from? And then here's Disney and all these other things. So science and technology ascends from being just the mental laborers at the third caste into being the Brahmins of society, of American society particularly, but also world society, because it influences the beliefs of people of different traditions and cultures around the world. And people have to compete with that because science is producing weapons and ways of imposing that at the warrior level, at the Kshatriya level, the second level. So that's the ascendance of science through the paradigm of the American system. Now, all that being said, again, world is catching up. Traditional and the natural world is catching up. The science is spinning its wheels in terms of like relevant innovations that satisfy people's yearnings, existential yearnings and motivations. And so there's a balancing out process, because this is the ebbs and flows of civilization and human constructs. It's just, that's the way it is. So anyways, that's some of the awareness, the observation of today. And now we're gonna begin the day. How about that? All right. So all things are praise to the Most High. Blessed love and peace. Rastafari. Namaste.